Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our HASP class on Ukraine. You're in for a real treat today. This is such an interesting topic. I'm Randall Miller. I'm the chair of the Social Sciences Committee and the coordinator for this class, and we are delighted to have Bob Wood with us today. Just a little bit on his educational background. He earned a BA from Western Michigan University and an MA in political science also from Western Michigan University. And prior to his retirement, he taught social studies and government courses in Seattle, as well as in Muskegon, and as also at Muskegon Community College. But more importantly, Bob will be sharing firsthand information with you about Ukraine. He spent last winter in Ukraine teaching, and later this month, he'll be returning to Ukraine to teach again. So he knows of which he speaks. So, and also, please be aware that the afternoon session is not a repeat. It's a continuation of what you will be hearing this morning. So please do come back and join us at 1 o'clock for the afternoon session. Please welcome Bob Wood.
I mean, I just heard about this, and thanks to Randall and Ian. I mean, I've been telling a lot of people about this. This is unique. I mean, I kudos. I mean, I really am impressed. And I remember I walked in the first day and I saw Swimming the English Channel, and I wondered if maybe it was two parts. I thought maybe the first part was how to do it, and then you guys were going to fly over to England and do it. So, I mean, that's rolling up your sleeves and putting on your goggles. Wow. We got an hour and a half. Perfect. First off, this is not a lecture. I mean, this is a talk. This is a discussion. You want to stop at any time and talk. We stop and talk. Okay. This afternoon. Oh, this afternoon is so cool. I was all weekend. I was on the phone with these guys. 8 young Ukrainians are zooming in. 8 young Ukrainians. These 4 are students at Ukrainian Catholic University in Lviv, where I teach. These 4 are filmmakers, and we're going to see 4 of their short films. They are part of a NGO called Vidlik. And Vidlik got 20 young people, 20 teenagers together in Ukraine to do documentaries on the street I need, my street, in this war, 3 to 6 minutes each one. And then they hook them up with professional sound people. And so these are striking. And we got 4 of the filmmakers are coming in this afternoon as well. We're going to show their little film, and then they'll talk about their little film. So this afternoon, it's all talk. You can ask whatever you want. It's all conversation back and forth. If you want to jot anything down so that you have it for this afternoon, that's fine. If you want to talk about it at lunch, that's great. Whatever you want to do. I am just so happy you're here. This war, I remember in February of 22 when it started, and I was just appalled because and it wasn't Ukraine that appalled me. It was Aleppo. I mean, I have been to Aleppo. Russia went into Syria. They barrel bombed civilians and wiped Aleppo and homes, just destroyed it. Destroyed it. If you've ever seen movies of drones going over those cities, there's nothing. There's nothing. They did this in Georgia. They did this in Belarus. They have done this for the last 20 years as Vladimir Putin has been president. And the West, US included, has just kicked the can down the road. We've treated him as a rock star. pictures of him riding bare-chested on horses, and I did too, you know. I looked at that stuff and I thought, isn't that cute? Isn't that cute? And then the people that he was murdering and poisoning in the capitals of Europe while all this was going on. And we enabled this behavior. And so when it started, I was just, God, not again. And I've always had a love affair with Eastern Europe. And I've traveled a lot because I always, when I travel, I thought, these guys, I'm sorry about the quality of this one, Poland and the Czech and Hungary and Romania, I thought, they stood up. They were gutsy. And people that stood up, they went to prison. They were tortured. They disappeared. And yet they continued to stand up. And so I was always had a love affair for Eastern Europe, but I never thought Ukraine was in Eastern Europe. Isn't that's crazy? Because it was behind this Russian curtain, Ukraine was just a subset of Russia to me. And so I didn't have the feeling for Ukraine that I had for Poland across the border. And that was my mistake. Part of it was this thing. How many of you know about the Holodomor? Wow. I have right here. Oh, let me just show you this too, for future. These are bios of the kids that they wrote. I think if you read these at lunch, it'll really stoke your imagination about them. This is I always start every presentation on Ukraine with I say hello, and I bring up the Holodomor. And then the backside, this is about the conversation. These are linked to YouTube. So this is about the conversation with Ukraine in some of the interviews you'll see. This is the movies, the movies that the young people made. So you just do the QR code. And then this one is a beautiful exhibition called Victory by Katerina Kosyavenko. And it's in Lviv at the Sheptetsky Museum downtown. And she is a striking artist and an iconographer. And I went to the opening exhibit, and my video of the opening exhibit is here. And I took my students to her exhibit, and then I talked to her, and she came to my class and she talked to my students. And I brought these, if you want to page through them, there are a couple of beautiful, her work is unbelievable. You walk in and it just blows you away with the color and the size. And then again, she's an iconographer. So the faces and the body styles and the stories are intertwined between what's happening today in Ukraine and the history of icons in Ukraine, which is huge. The churches in Ukraine, where the icons are, you go into a church in Ukraine, there's icons everywhere. I love Ukraine. I love Ukrainians. This thing is about Ukrainians. It's not, the goal of this is to a conversation with Ukraine. Yeah, because what you guys get all the time, what we all get all the time, is talking heads on TV and the war. And is Putin, is he terminal? Is he nuts? Is he sick? What's he going to do next? And this is not about any of that. This is about the people I've met. This is about the stories that I've had and how I was inspired to kind of center my life in Lviv for the time being. And I'm going back on the 28th. And so I can't wait. And I'm so proud of the young people. But the Holodomor, I start with the Holodomor. I have a BA from Michigan State University. Wow. Whoa. My MA is from, but my BA is in history and my MA is in political science, and it wasn't until last, not this past one, but 22, May of 22, that I even knew what the Holodomor was. How can that be? How can that be? It was a forced starvation of 3 to 7 million Ukrainians by Joseph Stalin in 1932 and 33. This is one of the best books I've ever read. And Anne Apple, oh, you've read this. Oh, she is so good. She writes for the Atlantic. And this thing reads. And this is about the Holodomor. And I just am blowing through this thing and taking notes everywhere. And I really recommend this book. If you want to know more, it's called The Red Famine by Anne Applebaum. She is she won the Pulitzer Prize for the Gulags. She's written a lot about the Soviet Union. And she is now my favorite author. And so I really, really recommend this. I also recommend, I picked this up because I didn't know enough. So this summer I've read this, The Gates of Europe by Serhii Plokhai. It reads nicely. And it starts from the Greeks and it goes to the end so that I know more about what I'm trying to teach about. And so I recommend this. And then I just bought this yesterday. He has written this about the current war, same guy. It just came out. So if you're really into reading, this by him, and I haven't read this one yet, but he's extremely well known and reliable author. And then, oh, absolutely this thing. Absolutely this thing, because when you read this and you study the Holodomor and you realize that the Russians and the Soviets have forever had Ukraine as a thorn in their side, that they were able to rid themselves of Ukraine and Ukrainians in 1932 and 33 through the forced starvation, through the murders, through the elimination of the teachers and the intelligentsia and the artists and the poets. And they used both of that to reduce Ukraine, to a servant state. And then they brought in a lot of Russians. So when you hear that, well, yeah, in the East, there's Russian-speaking people. Of course there are. Russia under Stalin spent a lot of time moving people around, picking up the Tartars in bulk and sending them off to Azerbaijan and eliminating Ukrainians and bringing in Russians. And so there's a lot of struggles there in regards to that. So I always want to bring the Holodomor up, because at the beginning of the war, Putin called this a Slavic brotherhood. We're going to go in to save the Ukrainians from something. There is no Slavic brotherhood with Ukraine and Russia. Russia has done this to Ukraine throughout history. This is just the latest chapter. This is brutal. This is insightful. So, any questions? Yes.
Thank you. You're talking about how the Russians brought in the Russian people in the 30s and so on. What about right now? I've heard that people who are Russian speaking in the east of Ukraine and the southern part are not pro-Soviets. Is that true? Has democracy over the time changed those people?
I think good question, really good question. I always get my best information from taxi cab drivers. And Poland is filled with Ukrainian taxi cab drivers, okay? I remembered my drive to the airport when I came back was with a Ukrainian taxi cab driver from the Donbass. And the Donbass is one of the, is the easternmost province. And I said to him, I always say to taxi cab drivers that are Ukrainian, what do you think? What do you think? You get stories. And he said, he paused. He said, I just want to win. And we drove a little longer. I said, what do you mean? And he says, my mom was Russian. A lot of people have mixed families. My mom was Russian. My father was Ukrainian, or is Ukrainian. And he said, you could tell that he didn't care when this whole thing began in 2014, if he was Russian or Ukrainian, which doesn't bode well for Ukraine because Russia exerts itself. And so he would have probably been in a leaning Russia camp. And he said, I didn't care before this war. And he says, they're destroying my home. They're destroying my neighbors' homes. They're ending our cities and towns. He says, I want Russia out. I think this war has been a miscalculation on a million fronts by Russia. And I think they are driving people into the arms of a Ukrainian, a stronger Ukraine. I really do. Ukraine has changed officially. Christmas, the date was the 7th on the Orthodox calendar. It is now the 25th. And it won't change for older people, but they're trying to push away from everything that's Russian. And the brutality of Russia has been such that it is feeding that fire. There will be, in the end, Ukraine will stand. The first line of their national anthem is Ukraine is not dead yet. Can you believe that? I mean, that's the first line of their national anthem. Oh, say, can you see? Ukraine is not dead yet. That's been their history. And so, yeah, good question. And I do think that a lot, but then by the same token, a ton of Ukrainians are gone and they won't return. And so you've had a brain drain. You've had people are out. The front is, oh God, the war is so brutal. It's a World War I slog of blood. And when I'm in Lviv, there's more and more giant pictures of the soldiers' faces. There are funerals all the time. St. Peter's and Paul downtown is a beautiful, huge church. And there's funerals around the clock. Yeah, everybody's touched by this war. It's horrific. It's horrific. So it is important that we're involved in it. And if we weren't, Russia is going to march right into Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia. And the guy up in Belarus is crazy too, Shenko. So yeah, wow, there you go. It's funny, I came back and I got angry when I came back here in May. And then I was sad. And then I was angry because people didn't feel like I felt. And I just got comfortable with myself about a month ago. And I said, okay, I'll do what I can do. I'll do what I can do. I'll center myself. I'll improve the relationship with my cat. I will get prepared for school and I'll be good. And so this was just a godsend for me to come here. I really, really appreciate that. And like I said, last night, those kids, I was talking, this has been something marshaling up these kids, across the thing. I have a group called the Ambassadors Club, and it's for this. And it's bringing kids that want to Zoom in with you all to talk. And they're wonderful kids. And these are talented little filmmakers. So there. Questions? Okay. So what is my goal today? We'll go until we run out of time. My goal is to introduce you to what I found in last October. So what I did is when the war came down, I just got involved. I had fundraisers in Grand Haven, Muskegon, Spring Lake, Kalamazoo, because I'm from Kalamazoo. And they were good. We made a little bit of money. We sent money out for humanitarian goods. It felt good. There was a lot of support, especially in Grand Haven. I was really impressed with Grand Haven and my friends there. And so we had different, we had a Morning Star. We had an event at the Morning Star. We had an event at Aldea Coffee. We would have different kinds of silent auctions and art auctions, and it was pretty cool. And then come the end of about this time last summer, I said, I need to do something. I got to do something. So I just said, I'm just going to go. I'm going to fly to Krakow. I'm going to get on a bus. I'm going to go to Ukraine. And I did. And people would ask me, what are you going to do? And I said, I'm going to be of use. That was my answer. It was, that's a nice answer. I'm going to be of use. And so I did. And now I just Krakow. I love Krakow. Has anybody here been to Krakow? Ah, is it beautiful? Oh my God, I'm going to be there. I always spend 2 nights in Krakow because I love it. It's just a beautiful Polish city. And it's funny. People say, and I believe this, that Krakow is kind of like a miniature Prague, and Lviv is kind of a miniature Krakow. And so you guys, anybody that wants to come to Lviv is welcome. I will open up the door. Lviv has been, they did have a bombing once this summer, but it's beautiful, and I feel totally safe there, much safer than I do in Holland. And so I flew into, you can't see this, sorry, Krakow. And I took a 7-hour bus ride into Lviv. You can't fly into Ukraine anymore. And so I didn't really have any connections, a couple friends of friends, but nothing strong. And the second day I was there, I was packing IFACs in a warehouse, just like I had done in Detroit. Nothing different. And I ended up at Ukrainian Catholic University, which is a beautiful, you'll see some pictures of it here, a beautiful university in Lviv. And Lviv is a Polish, Austro-Hungarian city. It's funny, Ukraine, let me show you, let's see how we can do this. Ukraine is, boom, there we go. Ukraine, here's Lviv over here. Boom. On this side. Kyiv is over here. This is the Donbass over here, Donetsk, Luhansk, Zaporizhia, Mariupol. You've heard of Mariupol. That's a majority of the fighting is right in here, and then Crimea is down here. And I spend most of my time in Lviv because that's where Ukrainian Catholic University is. Rokta is in the mountains. I met a family. I went to the mountains and I met a family that I still am right here, Olha. And this is her letter. And she's a fascinating gal who makes, she was an economics professor in the East and moved to the mountains with her family about 5 years ago. And she makes dolls. She makes the most beautiful dolls you've ever seen. And they're selling them down in at Mr. Miller's Emporium in Douglas. And then this was the letter she wrote and I brought back. And this is the translation of it. And she and her family, I went back there again in the winter. So I went there and I went there in October, and there was a teacher there, Marta Deminchun, who was I stayed at the dorm. They have a hotel in the dorm. It's a beautiful dorm. It's a beautiful hotel. There's 2 floors of the hotel. And I ran into Marta because she was the only person left for me to talk to at the university. Everybody said, talk to this person, talk to this person. And Marta said, she teaches English. And she said, or philology. And I didn't know what philology was. I had to look it up online. It's the study of languages. And she said to me, you want to be of use? Take my class for a week. And I said, oh, wow. I mean, I'm a teacher. And so this was in October. And I go into her class. And this was the start of school. And these kids, they were just their eyeballs. They were just riveted in. None of the native speaking teachers had come back to the university because of the war. And so I was kind of a unicorn. And I said, I just wanted to talk to them, and they wanted to talk to me. And I had them for a week. And I got the idea, okay, what I'm going to do, I'm going to send letters back home. And you all, my friends, Facebook me, ask a Ukrainian questions. And then I will ask these kids questions. And we did that. And then these kids, we videotaped the kids. I videotaped the kids answering. They chose one question and they answered it. And they were I'm going to show you 3 of them. I'm going to show you 3 of them here. And then one of the girls is going to be here this afternoon. And then what I did, I saw them on campus, and I just kept on keeping on with them. And then I used those. I came back in December and January and did presentations all over Southwest Michigan. And one of them was at the Saugatuck Brewery. And that's where Randall and I met. And I featured the same things that I'm featuring here today. And then I went to but before I left, I stayed for 6 weeks. And I fell in love with Ukraine. I fell in love with the people. I fell in love with the spirit. I felt like I need to be here. So I went into the Modern Foreign Language Department. And I said, okay, I actually used this term. I said, boots on the ground. I actually said that. I said, you've got no native speaking teachers coming. I said, I'll come back and teach if you hire me. And so they said, okay. So I taught spring term on a tourist visa. And then they hired me full time for this year. So I'm going to go back and teach this year on a Ukrainian visa, and I get a Ukrainian card, an ID card. So yeah, it's cool. And so that's how I got to where I am and why I'm here and why I love that country. My goal this year, I have a couple clubs. I teach a class, Critical Issues of Your World. I teach a class to 3rd-year students, and I will teach a class to 1st-year students. And I have 3 clubs. One club is the Walking Talking Club. And your clubs, the English clubs, are whatever you want to do, and you just do it in English. In the Walking Talking Club, we meet at the Sheptyski Center, which is the student center, at 6 o'clock on Tuesdays, and we go for walks and we talk, and it's fun. And lots of times we end up in downtown Lviv eating pizza. The second club, and I got a couple of gals in it that are great, is the Short Film Club. We watch short films in they have a little cinema center. And I got 2 gals that are just religious about it. And then we have a handful of kids that come. And that's on Thursday nights. And I'm going to add this year the Ambassador Club. And I'm going to find people like these guys who want to get online and Zoom throughout the school year. And maybe that is you guys as a group. Maybe that is you guys individually. Or maybe we get to a point where my morning class fits in the afternoon here. And every once in a while, we could have a Ukrainian update, and you could sit in on my class, and we could talk, and you could get to know the people that I know. Because when we see Ukrainians as people and not the defender of the free world from the scourge of Russia, and you bond with that, it changes the dynamic totally. so that when you come home to Michigan, you're sad and angry. But your cat gains because we've got a good relationship. Yes. Have Peace Corps workers gone to Ukraine? I don't know.
I think that might be something to investigate, because they have to be invited by the president of Ukraine to come. And I have several friends who were retired teachers who went to China that way, but now China has closed the door. But Ukraine, I don't know.
Well, you know, the good idea about that is Peace Corps might have a problem with a war zone, but this is not a war zone over here. The West, there is such a difference. Western Ukraine, when you read these books, you realize that Ukraine has been a stomping ground for Russia, Poland, Sweden, the Ottoman Empire, the Lithuanian Empire. And so this portion is a different, it is a different mindset than the East. I feel fully safe in Western Ukraine. I feel so safe in Lviv. I do. I have invited everybody and their mother to come and visit me and see a beautiful, beautiful city and meet fascinating people. I have on my phone, I have the air raid siren. Maybe it'll go off while we're in here because it just goes off whenever it wants to, whenever there is an air alert in Lviv. I'm linked to Lviv. And I live in the dorm now. So I live in the place where in the hotel. And the windows, I have two huge windows that look out at the park. And so and I sleep with the windows open. And when the alarm goes off, it just, you hear it everywhere. And it'll be at night. And you look out at the dark park and you look down a long street with streetlights and you hear that. And it's creepy, but I don't feel any threat at all. What I feel is, what is this doing to the brains of people who have loved ones in danger, in harm's way, in places where they have no control? And so, like, there's kids that have, there's Zaporizhia. The second video that I'm going to show you is a gal from Zaporizhia. And the video runs about 8 minutes, a little long, but baby, when you get into her story, you will feel her. And so, could Peace Corps workers be of use? Absolutely, they could be of use. Could you all be of use? Absolutely. You just come on over, baby. Just come on over. We had two congressmen. I don't know if you've ever heard of David Bonnier. David Bonnier and Jim McDermott came over for two weeks in the winter, and they did fact finding. And I got to know these guys, and they came into my class and talked to my students, and they fell in love with it. Everybody does. Yeah.
So I went online to look and see if Peace Corps volunteers
Yes.
have been in Ukraine. And yes, they have.
Really?
But they said on October 16, 2020, they had to remove them because of the war.
Because of the war. Yeah.
But something like 3,400 were, so they've been there.
They have. Good. I think you're going to see a lot of Ukrainians in Fulbright scholarship positions in the near future, because I think it's important that the United States stays alert in this, but they need to step up their support. They really do. Sometimes I feel like they're doing just enough to bloody the nose of Russia and not enough to get Ukraine over the hump. I don't know. It's hard. Cool. Okay. I want to show you one picture, and then I'll tell you the story of this picture a little later. This is my favorite picture. This is my favorite picture. This is in Kyiv. Life goes on. Life goes on. Where is that? The war continues, so does life. Life goes on, and that's what I like about Eastern Europe, and it's like what I like about Ukraine. This is on Andre's descent. It's a beautiful place. And this is just a photograph that Emily took, because Emily's there now. I told you about Emily. She's a friend of mine in Kyiv who works with the soldiers. And She snapped this photo, just a moment in time. And I love this. I love it because you see the old architecture. It's fall because nobody knows what to wear. You know, look, you got this over here, you got this here. There's conversation, just daily conversation. Someone on their phone. This little gal is taking a photo of something. Maybe these two. Maybe this guy. I don't know. But there's stuff happening here. And then this, you see soldiers everywhere. And they're just married. And she has her bouquet. And you know, I looked at this for forever. And my sister said, oh, she's pregnant. And I said, oh, you're right. He's touching her there. And of course she's pregnant. I mean, you don't put your hand there, you put your hand here. And I love this photo. I just love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. To me, it's Ukraine. And so let me introduce you to the young people that I met in Ukraine.
Attention retirees, if you're willing to be at your computer from 9 a.m. to 10:45 a.m.
First, I want to show you Lviv. Nobody, that's the thing. We don't even know these cities. There's so many street musicians everywhere. A lot of violins, banduras, brass, saxophones. This is Lviv, Ukraine. That's the air alarm. This is Ukrainian Catholic University. That's where I live. That's the church. It's a Catholic Orthodox, Greek Orthodox church. That's the cafeteria. It's a beautiful, beautiful university, really good students there. It's about the size of Aquinas. And next to it is Straitsky Park. It's the prettiest park I've ever seen in the whole world. I just absolutely love Straitsky Park. I go out there a lot and walk. Everybody does. That's the cafeteria. There's a beautiful cafeteria. Food's really cheap. Food's really good. I eat there all the time. This is the walk from Straitsky Park into, and this is Straitsky Park. Always music. Always filled with people. We put this together here at the end. Come on. Boom. And then, oh yeah, Emily sent me these from Thanksgiving. That was Straitsky Park on Thanksgiving. And then I went back in the spring, and I didn't think it could be more beautiful than the fall. It's even more beautiful in the spring because of the birds. It is. I've traveled a lot, and I have never seen a more beautiful city park. It's right up against the university. To go to downtown Lviv, it's a 2-mile walk. You go right through the park, down the hill, and into the city. I walk all the time, and kids are in the. I mean, everybody's in this park. Hopefully, I have time to show you a little video of this. I have a spring video in the park too. These are the kids that I met in the first day I was in there. There was an air raid, and so UCU does not stop classes. They go into the bomb shelter, and we keep going. And so, and they're involved. I mean, you don't get eyes, and this is in the bomb shelter. And so when I taught in the spring, we had several classes in the bomb shelter. And so this is the interviews I did. So I held up my video, and they would answer questions with the mic. And though these are the little videos you'll see in a minute, you'll see 3 of them. That's Sophia. That's Angelina. You'll meet her. And that's Sophia. There's a lot of Sophias. That's Sophia. That's Sophia too. Yeah, there are 3 Sophias. They were so emotional on these things. That's not Sophia. This little guy right here, Taras. I want to tell you a little story about Taras. He's a bright little guy, you could tell. I mean, the dendrites and neurons were just, and I would always ask every kid, every person, how does this end up? And every answer was, we win. There was no doubt, we will win. And I asked Taras, I said to him, I said, how? Because I'm not optimistic about this war at all. And I said, how? And he said to me, I'll never forget this. He said, because we have no alternative. To lose will be our demise. And he used the word demise. And I think of that word demise a lot. And I think of Taras. And I see Taras on campus. I see everybody on campus. It's half the battle of being there is that you see everybody on campus. And so I'm going to just keep living on campus, having my little clubs, eating at the cafeteria. Oh, okay. This is us. This was our little class. Yeah, question. Yes. I can repeat it.
Are these boys?
The first year students of these guys, first year, are young. They're 17, 18, 19. They get into college a year earlier than we did.
And don't all 18-year-old males have to go to fight?
Not if you're in a first year program. If you're in a bachelor's or a first year master's or a first year's PhD, you are exempt from the draft right now. That doesn't mean that that's going to hold in the future. But what is really devastating is how many young postgrads have died. And these teachers all know the postgrads. The postgrads are what, 22, 23. And I remember going into the Helena's office, and a guy had just died. He was a 23-year-old philosophy student. He had taken his books of philosophy to the front, and he was brilliant, and he had just died. And so we don't think, what we think of when we think of war is that it's horrific because of the death, obviously, and because of the horror of war. But the loss of human capital is also horrific. You've got all these brilliant young minds, and it's just like you just cut off their head and they're now gone. And so, I mean, how does this bode in the future? It's tough, but there is a vibrancy that is inspiring, and you'll see that. You're going to feel that. Yeah, go ahead.
My other question was, you said the western part isn't bombed and you feel very safe
Yes.
there. So the sirens that keep going off, sirens go off no matter where the immediate
No, it's
danger
really,
is?
they have a really, I can show you this. They have a really good system. There's 26 oblasts or states. I think there's 26 in Ukraine, and they're all tied in to different, their oblast. I'm tied into Lviv's oblast, but planes will scramble in Belarus. And so you've got about 20 minutes to 30 minutes. They also, you get missiles or drones from the east. The eastern provinces are always on alert. And so what happens is the map goes red when, and the alarm goes off when the threat of drones or missiles occurs. And then there's an all clear. But just this summer, there was a huge strike in Lviv that hit a giant apartment complex because Russia is targeting civilians. And it did, and it broke some windows at UCU. So it was close to UCU. But that's the only strike that I know of in Lviv. The war is primarily in the West and the South. I'm sorry, East and the South. Yeah.
How about newspapers?
Newspapers.
So much communication of things going on in any print.
All sorts of communication, not so much by print, but by online. Yeah, but there's news everywhere. There's journalists everywhere. There's not a lack of hard news. Yeah.
Some of the reasons they have to give people maximum warning on a drone strike.
Yeah,
And you
sometimes
cannot tell exactly which drone it is
Mm-mm.
or what path it's going to take, especially if it's an air launch.
No, and like I say to people, the whole country is going to have PTSD. The entire country, the civilians, the soldiers, everybody's going to have PTSD. It is really going to be a struggle, and it is a struggle. And yeah, we live here in a protected little bubble over here. We do, and it's hard. They're not whining. They're not complaining. They're pushing. I don't think anybody expected this to happen. And now it is what it is. You read this book and you'll know it's just the latest chapter. It's the latest chapter. And I can't wait to read this book because this is the chapter. This is what's happened since 2014 by a really good author. Questions?
Will you teach girls?
There's a lot of girls in the school. This is a liberal arts class. This is philology. The boys don't take philology. The boys take tech. They're IT, and political science mostly. But in philology, it's all girls. My class that I had, these were the kids I met, the young ones. And then my class, which was sociology, psychology, and social work, was all girls. I would say that there's probably about 65% girls on the campus. And they're smart. This is the cream of the crop in Ukraine. These are really bright young people. And their English is perfecto. Yes.
Have you learned Ukrainian?
I'm learning hello, goodbye, please, thank you, chicken, pork, things, the important things. I spent more time this summer reading, and I compartmentalize. Whenever I travel, I learn useful words. And I was gonna be this, I'm gonna learn Ukrainian. I don't think my brain can relearn a language. I'll learn what I have to, and I'll keep reading. You got to pick your battles. And I want to know more about the country. So what I do is I write and do this, and then I go back and I type up all of my notes and page number them. And then that way it goes through my brain a couple, 3 times, because I don't want to be dumb. I don't want to have to, like I did this year, I'll meet you at the horse statue down in Lviv. It's not the horse statue. God. Wow. And so at least I'm going to know who the statues are now. That I do know that. Questions? Let me introduce you to Sophia.
Teachers, let's face it, it's not always easy to keep our students focused. You want to know my secret weapon? Education.com.
Okay. There's Sophia. Okay. She was so dynamic.
Hi, my name is Sophia. I am 17 years old student, and a teenage girl who, instead of being worried about exams and unrequited first love, is worried about the innocent people that are dying in the shelters. So to begin with, I want to thank Amy Wood for the excellent question. What do you like most about your country? You made me think a lot, and I think I had some nice thoughts. So, what I like the most about my country, the youth, young people of Ukraine. It may sound unusual because I am also the part of it, but let me explain. I feel that our generation is the generation that may finally change the course of history. I hope so, because I mean, the terrible fact is that there are no Ukrainians that have never seen war. There are no Ukrainians of all the times that have never felt pressure by Russia. Our nation have been humiliated by our country neighbor since 17th century or even earlier, and they stole our history and our achievements. They killed our intelligence. They didn't consider us as equal to them, but that time is over. I feel that we, the modern Ukrainian youth, are able to break the circle of suffering. I understood that when I became a student of Ukrainian Catholic University, because I felt a power of ambitious and conscious people who are here to work and study hard for their bright future and the bright future of their country, who are genuinely open to the world and knowledge, who want and are really ready to help others. For example, our army, victims of the war, and even those people who needed some warmth and help before the war started. These are absolutely unique people who have so much love and kindness in their hearts and so much fortitude at one time. And it's not only about the students of Ukrainian Catholic University, it's about the Ukrainian youth in general from every corner of Ukraine. You know, we have something special. It's our joint fight. None of us are alone on our battlefield, and that's the power I told you about. You know, when we will win, our problems is not going to disappear immediately. We will have to rebuild our country, and it's also gonna be hard times for us. But we are strong enough. We can handle it, and we will definitely win. And yes, thank you. Slava Ukraini, glory to Ukraine.
That is Sophia. She was also an actress. I went to 3 plays, Ukrainian plays, and I sat there, I didn't know a single word. And she was involved in it. She is just a bright light, and I think of her a lot when I think of Ukraine.
Now, I was very interested in what she had to say, and I was trying to compare as she was talking with issues that we have here in America that our young people are talking about, which is not the war against our country at the moment. It's the war against what the entire planet is facing.
Yeah.
And so is this any part of what is able to be discussed?
Yes.
The ecology and climate and that sort of thing. They're aware of that, not just their
Oh.
position in the world
Absolutely.
at war.
my course is critical issues of your world. It was actually critical issues of the world, and they made me change it to your world. And so that's one class. That's my third year class. The first year class is English in a turbulent world. And so I'm not teaching English. I'm teaching political science. And so one thing as a teacher at Ukrainian Catholic University, they want these kids to use English. And so I can teach whatever I want. And so that then is up to me. And I am covering that. I mean, we're in trouble, baby, on that front. And they know it. And frankly, they get tired of the war. They do, and they want to talk about other things. One of my assignments, 20% of my grade, is I went out and bought them journal books. And I said, you know, there's gonna be a point in your life where you're a grandma or you're a mom, and your little daughter or your little son or your granddaughter is gonna say, Mama, where were you during the war? And I say, and you're gonna be able to say to them, wait a second, and you're gonna open the desk and you're gonna hand them your journal book. And so they have to do 2 entries a week. They send me a photo of the entry. They can cover the whole entry if they want, if it's personal, I don't care. Then we keep that going throughout the whole year. And they write about climate, they write about life, they write about sadness, they write about the same things that American teenagers write about. And about half of them get covered. And at first I wouldn't read anything. I felt like such a voyeur. And then I got to the conclusion that if they didn't cover it, they wanted me to read it. And so I thought it was cool. It was a good assignment, and we'll do it again this year. So and that's why this, I want to link classes. I want my classes to be in Zoom with American classes. And so I have a teacher at Grand Valley State University, Olga Gengel, who is Ukrainian, who I'm going to meet with tomorrow. Plus, Randall hooked me up with the superintendent from Saugatuck Schools, who is really interested in having some of his classes have this kind of liaison. And then I've got connections with younger kids, which would be really cool to liaison with younger kids. And so I think for everybody, that empowerment would be beautiful. There's no reason we shouldn't do it. The only reason we wouldn't do it is because either on my end or on the other end, they just don't deem it as significant enough. But it is. It's totally significant. Questions? Okay, Angelina. Angelina lives in Zaporizhia. Zaporizhia is where the power plant is. And I just went last night. I went back on and pulled up Chernobyl, the docuseries. If you haven't seen Chernobyl, watch it. Go on. It's on HBO. It's about a 6-part series, and it's so good. It won 13 Emmys, I think. And it is just so good. And I'm rewatching it, and it reminds me of the power plant. And the Russians have been rumored to have mined the power plant, the nuclear power plant, and they did mine and blow up the dam on the Dnipro River. The stuff that they are doing, the targeting of civilians and civilian infrastructure, that is war crimes. And they're on the Security Council of the UN. I don't know where we go. It's really difficult. This is Angelina, and she would when I would stand here, she was sitting on the left, and the whole time she would knit. She would knit scarves. She always knitted scarves. And this is her story. It's a little longer. Give her some time to get into it, but it will touch you.
Grammarly Go, your go-to solution for getting quality work done quickly.
There's her scarf. Her question is, how has your day-to-day life changed?
Okay, so my name is Angelina. I'm 17 years old and I study in the Ukrainian Catholic University, and I wanted to answer a couple of questions. So I had question number 15, and it is from Jenna Lowry. How is your day-to-day life different and what keeps you going? So I want to give you a little backstory of myself. So I'm from the east-south part of Ukraine. So I live where there is occupation now. So I've been under occupation for 4 months. So I can tell you a little bit about that. So the war started when I was 16, and my city was occupied 4 days after the start of the...
There are over 15 million high school students across the U.S. Future builders, leaders, and game changers.
And we're not just waiting to be discovered.
We're discovering
the war, which affected the whole of Ukraine. So I live in Berdansk, and it's been occupied since the 28th of February. Yes. So I was in the 11th year of school, and at the time I had offline classes because of the COVID breakout in my city. But I had classes that day, and I woke up at 4 a.m. and I was in shock, but I still had my classes. I had the first class and I had the second class, but the second class wasn't really a class. We were all in shock, and our teachers were shocked, and we didn't know what to do. So the teachers wanted to give us some kind of familiarity, so that we wouldn't be as panicked. And I had math on that day. So I have a friend who is still in occupation, and she said that they had offline classes that day, and they went to school that day, and their teachers came for them, their parents came for them, and they took them from school, and nobody knew what to do. So yeah, my routine wasn't as it had been before the war, and it wasn't as it should have been, because I didn't have any classes from March through May, and I didn't have a normal graduation. Those 4 days that I weren't in occupation, I was in panic. I had my brother and my mother with me, and we lived together. And then our city became occupied, and Russians were everywhere, and they threw away all our flags, and they went to some flats. They were searching for empty flats so they could live there, and they kidnapped some people, and it was really, really tough. Right now I'm going to this university, and I'm going to classes offline, but every other day we have air raid alert, which signals that we may have a rocket entering our territory, which can mean that our city can be bombed and we potentially can die from it. So and I have this friend that I was telling about, and she's still in occupation. She wanted me to tell you that her everyday life is very different, because they don't have air raids there, but they are occupied. And she has a flat in the city, Energoda. It has a nuclear plant in it, and so Russians are very fond of it. And they are currently bombing like regular people, just because they want to. And she has a flat in the city, and she has a home outside of the city. And when she comes to the city from the village, they have a block post there, and they're standing there with their pistols, and they are waving them. And
Hey parents, pay attention. Is your child still using simple words like good and like repeatedly in his or her essays in the 5th grade? Many parents don't know that writing
Sorry.
yes, I can continue. It's my native city. I was brought up there. So it is kind of hard. So they see our people as though they're animals, and they were threatening my friend, and she's 16 years old. That is just inhumane. And I have my mother in occupation, and all of my family is either in occupation or is being bombed by Russians. So I have a family that my native city is on the other side of the reservoir, and on the second side of the reservoir there is Nikopol, and my family live under Nikopol also. So my friend has Russians, they put their machines to bomb the other side of the reservoir, like very close to her home, so she hears everything. So our Ukrainian people can hear that civilians are being bombed. So that is very hard. And I also want to answer to the other part of the question. So what keeps me going is that we are a nation which cannot be easily subdued. We have always been free-minded, and I keep going because I cannot bear the thought of Russia simply as a country which just invades other countries. We are not the first countries that it invaded, and they act as though it's okay, and it kills innocent people and diminishes us and wants to wipe us out along with our language and our culture. So I lived in occupation, and we have the city center, and it is now with Russian flags, and it is on everywhere you can see. So I keep going because I want to outlive this war. I want to see my mom again. I want to see my friends again. And I also have cats with my mom there. I have 2 at home. I brought them from the occupation, and I also have 2 in occupation, and we have 2 dogs. And I have my mom there, I have my friends there, I have my grandparents there. I hadn't talked to them in months. I do not know what they think. They're really old. I do not know what they think. So, and there was the other question number 8. Do you feel safe? If not, what would help you feel safe? I do not feel safe. People in occupation do not feel safe. We do not feel safe. They do not feel safe because they do not know if Russians will want to bomb them or us. And they do not know that perhaps on that block post they will have a change of mind and they will kill someone who just wants to pass to the city. And and we do not feel safe because we are being bombed. My brother lives in Kiev, and it is bombed now nearly every day. So, and my cousin lives in Zaporizhia, and it is being bombed every day. And I have family under Nikopol, and it is also being bombed like every day, a couple times a day. I had a relative coming from there, and she talked about it. It's awful. So what would help me feel safe? If Russia didn't exist, that would be nice. If we weren't bombed, that would be nice. If we had our territories free, if we had our people free, if all the people that were brought to Russia against their will would be brought back along with the children. We have children in Russia who are being brought up by Russians. It is just awful. I cannot imagine what it is like. So if we could diminish Russia as it diminishes us, that would be really nice. If we could live freely and just exist. That's all.
My first year teacher.
Yeah. Yeah, that is, that's a, yeah. Yeah, yeah. What can you say? That she did, and the stories are similar. I've talked a lot, and we're running out of time, and so we won't get up to Barokta, but what I want to do is I've got a couple, like I said, there's music everywhere in Ukraine, and this feeling that life goes on. Even with all of this, life goes on. And there's a spirit in Ukraine that is catchy and is inspirational, and it has got me. And I think a lot of it is people and music on the streets. So I've got a couple of just happenstance things that are just like the core of how I feel about Ukraine. This was in Kyiv. So this was kind of cool. I was sitting at a cafe. I was sitting at a cafe right here, and I heard these gals across the street singing.
Господині, давайте спочатку. Даруй літа щасливі нашій Україні. Ми останні так само просто разом заспіваємо. Давайте ще раз. Про це будемо говорити. Ще раз, давайте. Раз, два, три. Нова радість стала, яка не бувала, пам-пам-пам-пам, над вертепом зірка увесь світ засяяла, пам-пам-пам-пам, де Христос родився, з діви воплотився, пам-пам-пам-пам, як чоловік пеленами у Бога повився, пам-пам-пам. Ой ти, царю, царю, небесний владарю, даруй літа щасливі цьому господарю, цьому дому господарю і всі господині, даруй літа щасливі нашій Україні. Добрий вечір.
They were, I posted this online, and then a friend, a Ukrainian friend, said that these were girls in, there was an air raid, and they were out in the park. And they were a choral group practicing for the Christmas Carol. And so that was Christmas Carol in Ukrainian. And that just feels like the spirit. And so what I do with my phone is I just walk towards interesting things and I just play it. And I didn't know what they were singing, and they didn't know any English. And it's not a problem. This thing, Kyiv at night, is really cool. I got into Kyiv at night. I remember my first experience in Kyiv. I took the train and I went into Kyiv, and I had an address or a place to stay. And I went to the train station and I got a cab and I gave him the address, and he spoke a little English. He says, "You sure this is it?" Because it was dark and there was graffiti everywhere. There were a couple street lights, and I didn't know what planet I was on. And I said, "Yep, this is it." Even though I didn't know what I was doing. And I got out of the car with my backpack, and he drove off, and I'm standing there, and it's just dark, street lights, graffiti, city. And I heard some voices about a block up. So I walked up towards a bigger intersection, and there was no lights. So there was a curfew. And there were people sitting around at an outdoor cafe drinking with candle lights. And I walked past that, and then I walked a little further down the street, and there was like this little, it's about 9 o'clock at night. And there was this little kind of sweet shop, and the door was open. And I walked up in, and the guy said, he said, closed, we're closed. And there was there were two guys sitting right here by the window. And I said, okay. And the one said, "American? Are you American?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm American." And he goes, and he says, "Jack Daniels." And he gave me, him and his buddy, so they filled up 3 Jack Daniels, and he puts his glass up and he says, "Slava Ukraine, glory to Ukraine. Slava Joe Biden." And then he says, "Jack Daniels." So I got another shot of Jack Daniels. And then the guy in the back says, "We have no food." And so they gave me 2 croissants to leave with, just to take. And that was my first night, my first 20 minutes in Kyiv. And so we were walking up above. This was on a different night in Ukraine, up above the city. And this was beautiful right here. So walking in the dark.
Would you like to see how ChatGPT helps us automate probably the simplest Amazon business that exists in 2023?
Okay. This is up above the river. Again, just walking towards the town. There's a Ferris wheel. Nice. That was just so, this is just the spirit of Ukraine. I will show you two final videos. One, I'm going back to that picture because Emily then found the video that went with it. So remember the picture, it actually was part of a little video. So this guy was playing the trumpet. That's the playing the trumpet. Oh, I called it a day. And I'll leave you with Yarina's little talk here. Yarina will be with us.
Hi, my name is Irina.
She's working tonight and she'll be a little late, but she's coming. And then I'll play, and then when we're done, I'll just put up a video that was my first day in Ukraine. It was pouring rain and I went for a walk in Strayiski Park and I came across a singer. So this is a good one to finish on.
And I'm proud to be Ukrainian. Well, I think a lot of people are wondering what we will do after our victory. The first thing is that we're going to be rebuilding our country. Because as you can see on the news and on the social media, there's a lot of destruction that were caused by Russian attacks. And I really hope that you believe in this and you see this and realize what we are going through right now. But I think the main question is, what is new Ukraine for me? What would be the life after the war? I think the main thing is the realization that there is no different attacks anymore. There wouldn't be air alarms. We wouldn't have to hide and just expect what would happen at any second. And also it's the feeling of independence, the feeling that we are finally free from this terrorist state, because as you know, through the history, we were struggling because of them. Our country was under Russian Empire and they cancelled our language and our culture. We are really lucky because our people has strength in their heart and bravery to create new things, to create our culture, to spread it among the world, around the world too. And only because of them, we are now independent. But as you can see, it's only on the paper. Because Russia still tried to invade us. Russia still tried to kill our people, to kill my people. But I really hope that will end soon. I really pray for our victory, for our soldiers, because they are really, really strong people. Because I think almost everyone thought that it's end for our country, for my country. Because as you can see, Russia is such a big state and there is Ukraine. But it's all in our heart. It's all in our heart that we are really strong and we could fight against such a big state. And I really hope that you will help us, not only us, but all our people, to win, to celebrate this victory, and to feel free again. Glory to Ukraine.
When you first met K-12, our commitment.
So that is it. Yeah. Any questions?
I have one question here.
Hi, my name is Irina and I'm proud to be
That's
Ukrainian.
Irina again.
Well,
What can we do? What more can the US do?
Number one, you can be awake. That's number one. Educate yourself, get involved, challenge contrary, misinformed people. Do that, do that, do that, do that, do that. That's number one, far and away. Number two, continue to be awake, continue to be involved. If you want to be involved in some kind of conversation or the ambassador club, or if you want to have more come through here and hear these kids, that's number one. Number two, contact your congressmen and tell them that that this is significant, and it is significant for a million reasons, humanitarian wise, and just for the sake of the world. And yeah, those are the things. If you want, you can contact me if you want to donate. I did not want to make anything to do with money, but if you want to, I have really, really, really good connections. And I have a 501c3 scholarship club that I did, Building a Better World, at my high school for 15, 20 years. And I am sliding that over into Building a Better World on a global stage. And so it will still focus on young people and Ukraine. And it is a 501c3, so it's tax deductible. So there are ways to donate, but number one is to be awake and to learn and to read and to get involved and to care.
Thank you, Bob. We are out of time for this morning session. Let's give Bob a round of applause. And our schedule now, because of these sessions, the way they're set up, we now have a 2-hour break. So you have plenty of time to run errands, have lunch, and be back here. If you would kindly be back here promptly at 1 o'clock, and we'll be on to the second session. And Bob already gave you a preview of some of the things that he'll be sharing in that session. Thanks very much.
Thanks a ton. I'll put up the last little video if you want to watch it while you're exiting. Let me first throw up. This was the first day I was in, and it was raining. Oh, absolutely. I think that data.
Nice.
Thanks.
Have you considered going solar in Michigan but afraid of the huge price tag attached? Most people don't know this, but almost